My name is Elena Whitaker. I'm 20 years old. And I didn't know my life was about to split cleanly into a before and an after until Christmas evening, while I was standing in my boyfriend's parents' garage, holding a phone that didn't belong to me, staring at police reports that made my hands start to shake. 5 minutes earlier, I'd been inside laughing. The house was warm, overheated, actually. The kind of warmth that fogs windows and smells like butter, sage, and something slightly burned in the oven. Holiday chaos. His dad telling the same story everyone pretended they hadn't heard a dozen times before. His younger sister, Madison, scrolling on her phone like Christmas was an inconvenience she'd been forced to attend. Normal. Comfortable. I was helping carve the turkey, doing a terrible job of it, honestly, when Diane, my boyfriend's mom, touched my arm. Not hard, just firm enough to get my attention. "Elena," she said quietly, "come with me, now." There was something in her voice that made my stomach drop. Not panic, not anger, decision. She didn't ask. She turned and walked toward the garage door like she already knew I'd follow. I did. The garage was cold, concrete floor biting through my shoes. She pulled the door down behind us, the rattle echoing too loudly in the sudden quiet. Christmas laughter muffled on the other side. Her hands were shaking. "I need you to listen to me," she said, "and I need you not to interrupt." That scared me more than anything else. She pulled out her phone and unlocked it with a shaky thumb. Opened a folder I knew immediately she hadn't meant to show anyone. "I like you," she said. "You're kind, you're steady, and that's why I'm doing this." "Doing what?" She turned the screen toward me. "Police reports." Multiple. My brain refused to process it at first. Official formatting, case numbers, dates, names. Not my name. His. My boyfriend, Ethan Reeves, 27 years old. The man I'd been dating for 14 months. The man who'd slowly, seamlessly moved into my apartment like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Read them," Diane said softly. The first report was from 2019. A woman named Laura Bennett filed for a restraining order. Harassment, obsessive behavior, hundreds of messages, showing up at her workplace, waiting outside her apartment, keying her car when she blocked his number. My heart started pounding. "He told us she was unstable," Diane said. "Said she was obsessed with him." We believed him. The second report, 2020. Domestic disturbance. A different woman. Hannah Moore. She claimed Ethan came at her during an argument. He called the police first, told them she attacked him. The case was dismissed after roommates testified that his story didn't match what they saw. "We paid for therapy after that," Diane said. Anger management. He said he'd learned. The third report, 2021. Rachel Kim. Identity fraud. Credit cards opened in her name. $8,000 in debt. Her credit score destroyed. Diane swallowed. "We paid restitution. Lawyers. Almost $10,000. He promised us it would never happen again." My hands were numb now. The fourth report, 2022. A woman named Olivia Grant. No romantic relationship. Ethan had been sleeping with Olivia's boyfriend. When Olivia found out, Ethan went after her instead. Slashed tires, threatening messages, posted her address online. 4 women, 4 years. I felt sick. "Why are you telling me this?" I whispered. Diane scrolled again. A text conversation, recent, between Ethan and Madison. Ethan: "Elena's easy. She trusts me completely." Ethan: "Already talking about her savings and future plans." Ethan: "She thinks I'm different." Madison: "Be careful. You know your pattern." Ethan: "Relax. I'm in control." I read it 3 times. Easy. In control. "He finds women who are younger," Diane said quietly. "Stable, kind. He moves fast, makes them feel special, safe. Then when they push back or start asking questions, he retaliates." I thought of how he'd moved into my apartment temporarily. How his weekend bags never left. How he'd cried when I hesitated. How he knew my passwords. How I'd given him my credit card for emergencies. I'd called it love. Does Ethan know you're showing me this? I asked. Her laugh was hollow. No, he'd never forgive me, but I can't watch him do this again. A burst of laughter came from inside the house. Someone clinked a glass. The turkey disaster story must have hit its punchline. Normal life. Meanwhile, mine was cracking open. What are you going to do? Diane asked. I didn't have an answer. We went back inside. Ethan slid an arm around my waist like nothing had changed, smiled, kissed my temple. I smiled back. The turkey tasted like cardboard. Later, he handed me a gift, an expensive watch. My chest tightened when I realized which credit card he'd used. That night, I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing. And for the first time since I met him, I wasn't thinking about love. I was thinking about patterns and whether I was about to become number 5. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay there beside Ethan, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling above my bed, listening to the rhythm of his breathing like it was a metronome counting down something I couldn't stop. Every time he shifted, my muscles tensed. Every time his arm brushed mine, my skin crawled. 3 days earlier, I would have tucked myself closer. Now, I inched away. He slept easily, deep, unbothered. That alone should have told me everything. My mind replayed Diane's voice over and over. He finds women who are younger, stable, kind. The words landed differently in the dark, sharper, more personal. I started noticing things I'd brushed off before. How he'd insisted on staying over just one more night, until staying became living together. How my apartment, my space, slowly filled with his clothes, his shoes, his things, until it felt strange to imagine it without him. How he'd framed it like we were building something serious, when really I was just absorbing him into my life. How he hated when I made plans without him. How he'd joke about my savings account. Wow, you're basically my retirement plan. And then laugh when I didn't. How he'd asked for my social security number last month, claiming he needed it for insurance paperwork. At the time, I'd felt flattered, trusted. Now it all rearranged itself into something uglier. I slipped out of bed around 6, careful not to wake him. The apartment felt different in the early morning light, less like home, more like a stage set after the actors leave. I made coffee and didn't drink it. Instead, I opened my laptop and started making lists. Things he had access to. Accounts, passwords, documents. The list got long fast. I scrolled back through our text messages, my chest tightening as I reread things I'd once found sweet. I miss you so much, it hurts. I don't know what I'd do without you. Promise you won't ever leave me. At the time, it felt romantic. Now it felt like rehearsal. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, sent from the bedroom. You okay? You got up early. I stared at the screen longer than necessary before replying. Couldn't sleep. Work stuff. A lie. My first one in months. He sent a heart emoji. Rolled over. Went back to sleep. That scared me more than if he'd pressed. By mid-morning, I knew I couldn't sit with this alone. I needed someone who wouldn't panic. Someone who wouldn't tell me I was overreacting. I called my older sister, Marissa. She picked up on the second ring. Elena, what's wrong? I hadn't planned what to say. The words spilled out anyway. Christmas, the garage, the police reports, the texts, Diane's warning. My voice shook harder as I spoke, like my body was finally catching up to what my brain already knew. Marissa didn't interrupt. When I finished, there was a pause, long enough to make my heart pound. Okay, she said finally. Calm, controlled, the same tone she used when clients were panicking. First thing, do not confront him yet. I wasn't planning to, I said quickly. Good. Second thing, assume everything you do from this point forward might need to be explained to a lawyer. That landed heavy. He's living with you, she continued, right? Yes, but he's not on the lease. That helps, but it doesn't mean you're safe. I told her about the Hannah report, about Ethan flipping the narrative, calling the police first. Marissa exhaled slowly. Then you need to protect yourself before you do anything else. How? Documentation, security, distance. She walked me through it like a checklist. Change every password he knows. Pull your credit report. Back up your text messages. Do not delete anything. Install cameras, legal ones, in shared spaces. And most importantly, do not break up with him until you're prepared for retaliation. Retaliation? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Yes, she said, because if his pattern holds, rejection is the trigger. I hung up feeling colder than I had in the garage. Ethan woke up around noon, cheerful and relaxed, like the world hadn't shifted on its axis. He kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted brunch, complained about his sister being weird last night. I watched him talk, watched how easily affection slid into place, and for the first time, I saw the mask. The rest of the day passed in a strange, detached blur. I smiled when expected, laughed at the right moments, let him tell me about his plans for us, trips, investments, vague future promises that suddenly sounded less like dreams and more like leverage. That evening, while he showered, I checked my credit report. Clean. Relief washed through me so fast I almost cried. But then I kept digging. Buried in our message history, I found a text from 2 months earlier, sent while I was at a conference out of state. What if something happened to you and I wasn't notified? We should really talk about making things more official. I'd replied with a joke. Now it read like reconnaissance. That night, I ordered 2 small cameras online. Discreet, no audio, legal. My hands shook as I hit confirm purchase. This wasn't who I thought I was. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't sneaky. I was careful. Ethan noticed something was off. Of course he did. You're quiet, he said over dinner. Did I do something? I met his eyes and forced a smile. Just tired. He studied me for a second longer than comfortable, then nodded. You work too hard. Later, as we lay in bed, his arm wrapped around me possessively, he whispered, We're good, right? I swallowed. Yeah. The lie tasted bitter, because I wasn't thinking about if this relationship would end anymore. I was thinking about how, and whether I'd get out clean or burned. The cameras arrived the next afternoon, small, black, easy to hide. I stared at the box for a long time before opening it, like it might accuse me of something. Installing security in your own home feels like admitting a truth you're not ready to say out loud. I waited until Ethan left for work. The moment the door closed behind him, I moved fast. One camera went on the bookshelf, angled toward the living room. Another above the kitchen cabinets, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. No bedroom, no bathroom. Just the shared spaces Marissa had warned me about. I tested the feed twice. Recording. Time-stamped. Evidence. That word echoed in my head. By the time Ethan came home that night, the apartment looked exactly the same. Pasta boiling, music playing softly, me smiling like nothing had changed. But something had. Inside me, a switch had flipped, from confused to alert. We ate at the table like we always did. He talked about work, about a coworker he hated, about some trip he wanted us to take once things settled down. I nodded at the right moments, my eyes drifting to his hands, his jaw, the way his expression shifted when he wasn't being watched. Halfway through dinner, I set my fork down. We need to talk, I said. His face changed instantly. Not concern, not curiosity. Control recalibrating. What? He asked. Flat, sharp. Not, what's wrong? Not, are you okay? Just what? My conversation with your mom, I said carefully, on Christmas. The temperature in the room dropped, like someone opened a window in winter. He went completely still. She talked to you? He asked. Yes. What did she say? She showed me police reports, Ethan. The silence stretched. Then he stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. That woman is insane, he snapped. She has no right. 4 reports, I continued. 4 different women, over 4 years. He started pacing, running a hand through his hair. They were all lies. All of them? Yes. Every single one? Yes. The way he said it, quick, rehearsed, made my chest tighten. Laura was obsessed with me, he said. Hannah was abusive. Rachel told me I could use her credit. And Olivia, she was stalking me first. 4 stories, 4 victims, one common thread. You don't see a pattern there? I asked quietly. He stopped pacing and looked at me like I'd said something deeply offensive. What I see, he said, is my girlfriend attacking me based on lies from my toxic mother. She also showed me texts, I said. My voice shook despite my effort. Between you and Madison. His eyes flicked away for half a second. What texts? The ones where you called me easy. That did it. He froze. Not confusion, not denial, recognition. She violated my privacy, he said finally. Those were jokes. You're taking them out of context. What context makes that okay? The tears started instantly, like a switch had been flipped. I can't believe this, he said, his voice breaking. I thought you loved me. I thought you trusted me. I'm trying to understand what happened, I said. I'm not attacking you. Yes, you are, he snapped. You're accusing me of being some kind of criminal. I'm asking questions. And that's because my mom poisoned you against me, he said, louder now. She's always tried to ruin my relationships. He grabbed his jacket and keys. I need space, he said. I can't deal with this. The door slammed behind him, hard enough to rattle the wall. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. We're done. I can't be with someone who doesn't trust me. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. That was easy, too easy. An hour later. I'm sorry. I overreacted. Can we talk? I love you so much. Then, please don't give up on us. I'm scared. Then, fine, ignore me. Just like everyone else. You're just like them. Then, I'm coming back. We need to fix this now. 14 messages in 2 hours. I didn't respond to any of them. He came back around 11. I was ready. My phone was in my pocket, recording audio. The cameras were rolling. He walked in slowly, eyes red, shoulders slumped, a performance of remorse. Baby, he said softly, I'm so sorry. I panicked. He reached for me. I stepped back. I think we need a break, I said. A break. The words detonated. No, he said immediately. No. We don't need a break. We love each other. This isn't about love, I said. It's about trust and patterns. They were all lying, he snapped. Every single one. Or, I said carefully, you're the common denominator. His face twisted. Get out, he said suddenly. This is my apartment, I replied. I'm on the lease. You're not. That landed like a slap. Are you kicking me out? He demanded. I'm saying we need space, I said. You can stay with Madison for a few days. He stared at me, eyes dark. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, he said. Then, quieter, too quiet, he added. You have no idea what I'm capable of. The words hung there. He left again. I heard him in the hallway, shouting into his phone. Mom, you ruined everything. I didn't wait. I called an emergency locksmith. $200 at midnight. New locks by 2 a.m. Worth every penny. I didn't sleep. I kept expecting him to come back, to bang on the door, to break something, to escalate. But the apartment stayed silent. At 9 the next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Ethan Reeves' attorney. You have illegally locked my client out of his residence. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I called Marissa. That's not a lawyer, she said after reading it. Don't respond. I didn't. But my phone kept buzzing. New numbers. Same messages. You can't do this. That's my home too. You owe me money. You're going to regret this. By noon, 2 police officers were standing in my office lobby. Ms. Whitaker, one said gently, we need to speak with you about a domestic situation. My heart dropped into my stomach. This was it. This was the pattern repeating itself. And suddenly, I understood exactly why Diane had been shaking in that garage. The walk from my desk to the conference room felt longer than it should have. Every step echoed in my head. My palms were slick with sweat. I kept thinking about the Hannah report, the one where Ethan had called the police first. How calm he'd been in the retelling. How convincing. The officers weren't aggressive. That almost made it worse. "We just need to ask a few questions," the older one said, offering a practiced half smile. "Nothing formal right now." I told them everything. About the lease, about Ethan leaving voluntarily, about the messages, about the police reports his mother had shown me. I handed over my phone with shaking hands, scrolling to the text where he'd written, "We're done." The younger officer nodded slowly. The older one sighed, like he'd seen this movie too many times. "Here's the thing," he said. "Even if he's not on the lease, if he's been living there for more than 30 days, he may have established tenancy." My stomach dropped. "So I can't lock him out?" I asked. "Not without notice," he said. "You'll need to allow him to retrieve his belongings, with a police escort." Of course, there was always a catch. After they left, my manager called me into her office. She was kind, but her eyes held concern she didn't bother hiding. "Elena, I support you," she said, "but we can't have police showing up here. Please keep this separate from work." I nodded, apologized, promised. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing again. New number. "I'm not leaving. That's my home too. And you owe me $3,200. I stared at the message, disbelief turning into something sharper. For what? Rent I'd paid in full? Groceries he'd bought twice? Marissa drafted the notice to vacate that night. Formal, clean, 30 days. We scheduled the pickup for Wednesday evening. Police present. Ethan showed up with an entourage. His sister Madison. 2 large men I'd never seen before, and an attitude that could have powered the building. "I need at least 3 hours," Ethan announced, "and I'm taking the TV." "The TV I bought 2 years ago," I said. "Community property." The officer stepped in. "Ma'am, do you have proof of purchase?" I pulled up the receipt on my phone. Time-stamped. Long before Ethan had ever stayed over. "The TV stays," the officer said firmly. Ethan's face flushed red, but he didn't argue. He just smiled, a thin, unpleasant thing, and started packing slowly, deliberately. He kept trying to talk to me. "Remember the beach? What about our plans? You're really doing this?" I didn't respond. Halfway through, he disappeared into the bathroom. 5 minutes. Then he came out looking satisfied. Something in my chest tightened. When they finally left, boxes piled high, I walked through the apartment, checking. My laptop? Gone. 2 jackets? Gone. Kitchen appliances? Gone. Then I opened the medicine cabinet. Empty. My anxiety medication. 30 pills, filled last week. I didn't panic. I checked the camera footage. There it was, clear as day. Ethan opening the cabinet, slipping the bottle into his pocket, zipping his bag. I called Marissa immediately. "That's theft of a controlled substance," she said. "File a report now." The officer on the phone sounded bored until I mentioned video. "Send it to this email," he said. "We'll add it to the report." The next day, my car was keyed. Deep, ugly scratches down the driver's side. No cameras in that section of the garage. Insurance deductible, $500. Friday, an email arrived from a real law firm. Real letterhead. Ethan was demanding money. For rent, for property, for emotional distress. Marissa laughed when she read it. "He's fishing," she said. "We'll shut this down." Her response was sharp and final. Any further contact would result in a restraining order. The weekend was quiet, too quiet. Monday morning, my bank called. Suspicious charges. Hotels, restaurants, online shopping, $2,000. The credit card I'd given Ethan for emergencies. I filed a fraud report. Might get the money back, might not. Tuesday, HR email. Meeting required. Harassment complaint. I felt like I might throw up. The allegations were precise, detailed, upside-down versions of reality. Stalking, threats, false police reports. I brought everything. Texts, videos, reports, receipts. The room went silent as they reviewed it. "We're not taking disciplinary action," HR said finally, "but I recommend a restraining order." That night, Marissa came over with takeout and a plan. We compiled everything. Every message, Every report, every threat. I filed for a temporary restraining order the next morning. That afternoon, Ethan found out. You're going to regret this. I'm the victim. The next day, my social media exploded. A long post from Ethan about his abusive ex. Me. Friends I barely knew offering support. Calling me names. I didn't respond. I screenshot everything. The hearing was scheduled for Tuesday. I didn't sleep until then. And when I finally stood in that courtroom, suit pressed, evidence stacked, I realized something terrifyingly simple. This wasn't about breaking up anymore. This was about surviving someone who refused to let go. The courthouse smelled like old paper and disinfectant. I arrived early, too early, because sitting alone in my apartment with my thoughts had become unbearable. Marissa met me on the steps, her expression calm, professional, grounding. She handed me a coffee I didn't drink. Remember, she said quietly, facts over feelings. Let him perform. You don't. Ethan arrived 10 minutes later. He wasn't alone. Madison walked beside him, jaw tight, eyes sharp. A man I didn't recognize trailed behind them, hands shoved into his pockets, already uncomfortable. Ethan didn't look at me, not once. He wore a soft gray sweater and jeans, casual, harmless, the kind of outfit that says, I'm not a threat. I felt my pulse in my ears. The judge was young, younger than I expected, female, tired in the way people get when they've seen too many versions of the same story. She called the case. Marissa went first. She laid it out methodically. No drama, no adjectives, just a timeline. The 4 prior police reports. The supervised property pickup. The video of Ethan stealing my prescription medication. The fraudulent credit card charges. The false complaints to my workplace and building management. The threatening messages from multiple numbers. The social media smear campaign. When the video played, the room went quiet. Ethan's face didn't change. Madison stared straight ahead. The judge watched the clip twice. Is this footage continuous? She asked. Yes, Marissa said, time-stamped and unedited. The judge nodded and made a note. Then it was Ethan's turn. He stood, hands shaking just enough to be noticeable. Your Honor, he said, voice breaking, she's twisting everything. Those police reports were misunderstandings. My exes lied. The medication, she told me I could take it. I was under a lot of stress. The judge looked down at the video again. In this footage, she said calmly, you remove the medication from the cabinet and place it in your bag. Where is the conversation about permission? Ethan hesitated. She edited it, he said. The timestamp can be manipulated. Marissa stood immediately. Your Honor, we have the original file metadata and cloud backup records. The judge waved her back, already reading. Ethan shifted tactics fast. He started crying. I'm the victim here, he said. She's older. She has money. She pressured me into moving in and then threw me out when I wouldn't do what she wanted. I felt my chest tighten. The implication hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. The judge's eyes sharpened. What exactly are you alleging? She asked. Ethan swallowed. Emotional and sexual coercion. Marissa was on her feet instantly. Your Honor, this is a baseless accusation, she said. It mirrors a documented pattern present in prior relationships. We also have a sworn statement from Mr. Reeves' mother outlining this behavior. The judge looked up. Do you have evidence to support your claim, Mr. Reeves? Ethan sniffed. My word should be enough. In this court, the judge said flatly, it is not. She reviewed the file for several minutes. The room was silent, except for Ethan's exaggerated sobbing. Finally, she looked up. Based on the evidence, she said, I am granting a 1-year restraining order. My knees almost buckled. Mr. Reeves, she continued, you are to have no contact with Miss Whitaker. No in-person contact. No phone calls, no texts, no emails, no social media, no third-party contact. You must remain at least 100 yards away from her residence and workplace. Ethan stood abruptly. This is insane, he shouted. She's lying. The evidence speaks for itself, the judge said coolly. Particularly the video of you taking prescription medication that does not belong to you. She paused. I am also referring that incident to the prosecutor's office for potential criminal charges.
That shut him up.
We were dismissed. In the hallway, Ethan exploded. "You ruined my life," he screamed. "My mother destroyed everything, and now you're finishing it." Madison tried to calm him down. The man they'd brought looked like he wanted to disappear. Marissa walked me to my car. "That went as well as it could," she said. "You're protected now." I nodded, but I didn't feel relieved. I felt empty. The restraining order didn't erase what had happened. It didn't fix my car, or refund the money, or undo the damage at work. It didn't give me back the apartment that no longer felt safe. 2 days later, Diane texted me. "I heard what happened in court. I'm so sorry. Thank you for protecting yourself. I should have warned you sooner." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "You probably saved my life. Thank you." She responded almost immediately. "He's entering mandatory intensive therapy." Or I cut him off financially. I enabled him for too long. I believed her. As for Ethan, I don't know where he ended up. I don't care. I'm focused on rebuilding now. Therapy, credit freezes, identity protection, quiet routines. This wasn't a clean ending. There was no victory lap, just survival. And sometimes that has to be enough. The restraining order didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the silence after a car crash, ears ringing, hands shaking, heart still racing, even though the impact was over. For the first few days, I jumped every time my phone buzzed. Every unfamiliar number sent a spike of panic through my chest. I checked behind me when I walked to my car. I replayed the judge's words in my head like a mantra: no contact, 100 yards, as if repeating them could make them more real. But protection on paper doesn't undo damage. Financially, the numbers added up fast. $2,100 in fraudulent credit card charges. The bank eventually credited back about half, ruling the rest authorized use because I'd given him the card initially. The locksmith, the cameras, legal filing fees, the car repair after insurance. When I finally added everything up, I stopped at $4,900 and closed the spreadsheet. Emotionally, the cost was harder to quantify. Work was different. My manager never brought it up again, but I could feel the caution. The way conversations ended a little sooner. The way my calendar suddenly felt lighter. No one said anything outright, but I understood the subtext clearly. Please don't bring chaos here again. A few friends distanced themselves. Not dramatically, just slowly. No replies, neutral responses. I don't want to take sides energy. That hurt more than I expected. Therapy helped. Not in some movie montage way. No sudden breakthroughs. Just a quiet room where I could say things like, I ignored my instincts, and not be told I was stupid for it. Because that was the hardest part. I wasn't naive. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't desperate. I was careful, thoughtful, grounded, and he still got in. My therapist helped me unpack that. How people like Ethan don't look dangerous at first. How they test boundaries slowly. How they mirror values. How they create urgency where none needs to exist. Love bombing doesn't feel like manipulation when you're inside it. It feels like being chosen. I moved my bedroom furniture, threw out the sheets, donated the watch he'd bought me with my own money. I stopped sleeping with the lights on. 4 months later, when my lease was up, I moved. Different neighborhood, different building, new routines. I froze my credit, signed up for identity protection, changed my phone number, locked down my social media. It felt excessive until it didn't. One afternoon, months later, I ran into Diane. Pure coincidence. I was at a grocery store near my new place when I heard my name spoken gently behind me. Elena? She looked older, tired, but lighter somehow. We stood there awkwardly between the produce and the dairy aisle. Two people bound by something neither of us had asked for. He violated the restraining order once, she said quietly. Sent a message through a friend. The police handled it. I nodded. He's still in therapy, she continued. I'm not funding his life anymore. He has to work. face consequences. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it, not for him, but for the future women he might otherwise hurt. Before we parted, she took my hand. I'm proud of you, she said. You did what I couldn't. That stayed with me. Dating again was complicated. Not because I didn't trust men, but because I trusted myself differently now. I moved slower, asked harder questions, paid attention to how someone reacted when I said no, or not yet, or I need space. Red flags didn't look dramatic anymore. They looked subtle, familiar. I learned something important through all of this. Not every villain looks like one. Not every warning comes from a place of malice. And not every ending feels like justice. Sometimes the win is getting out before the worst happens. Sometimes the win is documentation and distance and surviving someone who wanted control more than connection. I used to think love was about intensity. Now I know it's about consistency, respect, patience. And if someone's own parent pulls you aside at Christmas and shows you police reports in a garage, maybe don't stay for dessert.